This is a burrito from Chipotle, and this is a burrito from Peppo's Burrito Bar, a small local burrito chain in East Tennessee. This burrito is about twice the size of the Chipotle burrito, and I can tell you from experience that this one has better ingredients and tastes way better. Not only that, if we go in the Chipotle bag, it's empty. There's nothing else in here. If we go inside this bag, I also get chips and salsa with this for no extra charge. So, if you were to think which of these burritos is going to cost more, you would obviously say it's this one, right? You would think this one is going to cost more. It has the extra stuff and it's bigger. But no, both burritos cost around $13. Let's go one down here. Red Lobster is one of the most popular seafood restaurants in the world. However, recently they announced that they would be shutting down tons of their locations and that they would be filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So, what happened? How does one of the most popular restaurant chains in America fall so far? So looking at it, there's very clearly a problem. And it's not just with Chipotle and Red Lobster. It expands to several other restaurants in the industry like McDonald's, Panera, Sweetgreens. All of these restaurants are having issues. So to research it, I decided to email my old economics professor, Donna Weckman at the University of Tennessee. And I sent her an email basically saying, why is the food industry so messed up? And she responded back, this is way too broad of a question. How do you expect me to answer this? There's so many different things. Unless you want me to give you like a 10-page paper response to this, this is ridiculous. And I emailed her back and I was like, you're right. And I narrowed down the search to food retail. Why is there so many problems with that? And she called me less of an idiot this time, still roasted me saying it was too broad, but she gave me a lot of good information. So I'm going to try to explain that now. This is my attempt at explaining the email that I received from my professor. So why do we have high prices and cutting and worsening quality? Well, there's two major reasons, supply chain and inflation. So we're going to start off with the supply chain. Why is the supply chain bad? We're recovering from COVID still, and so what this means is we have a bad labor market. The bad labor market comes from the fact that people are working from home more, they expect to get paid a lot more and more than companies are able to pay them. And then also, we have lower amounts of inputs, which is listed right there. But the problem is, if the demand is low, then none of this matters. But the demand is actually incredibly high right now. And as demand increases, especially because they have underestimated what demand is going to be like, inflation is only going to get worse. And then inflation, in turn, worsens the supply chain because the supply chain has to pay more. The supply chain has to pay more, so they charge more, which leads to more inflation. Why is inflation high? It again is really money for labor and high demand. And we can see this take effect in this supply-demand chart graph. The points where your supply curve and demand curve meet is where you have different prices. On this side is price, this side is quantity. And so we are in a spot right here, which is incredibly high demand and nowhere near enough supply, which means our quantity is not high and our price is about as high as it can get currently. So this is a massive problem, but a lot of this could be solved if we lowered our demand. But that's not really going to happen. Our culture has changed a lot. People don't have the culture is kind of revolved around fast and easy. And therefore the demand keeps going up for fast food and all of these other things to make our lives easier, even when people can't afford it. And until we have that culture change, demand is going to keep going up. So all of this makes a lot of sense. This is the reason why businesses are struggling in today's market. This is why prices are going up and quantities are getting lower. It all makes sense, right? And all of that makes sense, except for places like this. How has Chick-fil-A managed to still be successful despite not sacrificing their quality and while still keeping their prices at a very reasonable level? And they're not the only ones. There's places like In-N-Out, Panda Express. So what is the link between these places? So I sat down on my computer and decided to figure it out. I researched for hours and hours. I created a map of all these ideas to try to figure out where the link is. What is it? And after hours of research, I gave up. I couldn't figure it out. I decided to make myself some dinner and move on, be done with this. Until all of a sudden, I figured it out. I put my map up on my easel, wrote it down, and started connecting the links. Until all of a sudden, it was there. I had solved it. So you might be asking, what is an IPO? Well, an IPO is simply a publicly traded company. A publicly traded company is a company that is sold in the stock market. Why would you want to be a publicly traded company? Well, number one, you need to raise money. You need money to run a business. Going public is a great way to raise money. Number two, you need publicity. People need to know about you so that they can buy things from you. If they don't know about you, you're not going to sell anything. So going public is going to gain you publicity. People are going to write about it. It's good. However, it does have some downsides. Number one, you're going to have more regulation, both from your shareholders and the government. You don't want regulation. Regulation is bad. Number two, you're going to lose complete ownership of the business. And I think this is really where we see it affect the consumers. And this really shows in Red Lobster. You see, Red Lobster went public in 2012. Darden Restaurants, the previous owners and founders of Red Lobster, needed to raise some money. Darden was a company that knew about restaurants. They only worked in restaurants. They knew how to create good restaurants that would be very profitable, and they were very successful. However, due to pressure from shareholders, because the restaurant was performing well due to more competition in the seafood industry, it was still a good functional restaurant at the time. It just had more competition. Shareholders said, we need to sell this off. We need new ownership. So it was sold off in 2014 to Golden Gate Capital for $2.1 billion. Golden Gate Capital is a private equity firm that knew nothing about it. Their entire thing is they buy up companies like this, run them for a little bit, and then profit off of buying up all of these random companies. And they bought it for $2.1 billion. They could not afford this. However, there is this strategy called sale leaseback, which is where you buy a restaurant, you sell the locations and real estate to a real estate firm. The real estate firm then leases it back to you, and then you lease it to the franchisees. And so what this does is it allows people like Golden Gate Capital to raise more money. However, it makes it completely unaffordable for the franchisees to run restaurants. It makes it to where you cannot run the restaurant. It makes it way too expensive. And so you're forced to make massive cuts, which showed a massive drop-off in quality at Red Lobster. And this is, I think, the biggest reason why they had to file for bankruptcy. This program cost them $200 million in 2023. And then declaring bankruptcy in 2024, I think it's not really the endless shrimp deals. I think it was actually this sale leaseback program. So you might be wondering, is this all just the IPOs? So is all of this the IPOs? Or is it actually the things that we talked about before, the high demand, the inflation, the supply chain issues? And honestly, we don't really know. So what's the actual answer? Is the problem these evil private equity companies, or is it all the economic problems that we have in the American economy today? The truth is, it's probably a little bit of both, but I can assure you neither of them are helping.